All right, so for the last section, I want to talk about the relationship between the unemployment insurance and the CPS, as well as what we're seeing in the CPS. So this is a chart that I didn't have to redo in any way. It shows the dramatic increase in the unemployment rate. One of the issues that you might be interested in, and I didn't do any slides on this in this particular for this particular presentation, is the fact that there were a lot of things written, including things written by BLS, about how the unemployment rate was underestimated because of the misclassification of people as employed but absent from work instead of being classified as unemployed. And I just want to note, I applaud the BLS for being very transparent in sort of talking about this each month in their box note, and also providing estimates as to what the potential impact has been. What you'll notice in those box notes is that the impact got smaller and smaller every single month. So the misclassification issue, while there, has been getting less and less. But nonetheless, whether you think that the unemployment rate went up to 20 or stayed at 14, it still went, it peaked up and it's been coming down, and rather quickly, even though it's still fairly high relative to the 4% that we had before the recession began. You're either going to love this table or I'll have to apologize for it, but I really kind of like the concept of this table because it shows how to think about unemployment insurance vis-a-vis the CPS. And sorry, I just took a sip of water. If you take a look at the first column, these are initial claims by week for the week endings 3/14, 21, 28, and those are just the numbers each week. The next column in blue basically is the running total, the cumulative total. So that basically starting in 3/14, the week ending 3/21, all the way to 4/18, you got 26.5 million people who filed for unemployment insurance. So if you know about the CPS, you know that the data collection week is the week including the 19th, and the reference week is the week including the 12th. And to be honest with you, I should have had those CPS numbers in the last three columns in the 3/14 row. I apologize for that. I realized that this morning after I sent the presentation off. But basically, what those three numbers are, it says 7.1 million people showed up as unemployed in the March report. The next time we get a report is in April. And if you look at the 4/18 row, that week ending 4/18 is the week that includes the 12th of the month. In other words, the reference week. And their unemployment went up to 23 million. And then there's a second category that I'm noting. It's called on temporary layoff. The point that I want to make with temporary layoff is that when you're laid off, if you are expecting recall, whether you're searching for work or not, you're classified as unemployed. If you're laid off, but you don't expect recall, and remember the high percentage of firms in industries like accommodation and food services that may not have been willing to say that they're going to rehire you back. If you are laid off and you're not expecting recall and you're not searching, probably because the governor said, please stay home, you're getting 600 a week, you're going to be classified as out of the labor force. So if you go to the very bottom row, what you get is that the cumulative filings for anybody, whether they're looking for work, not looking for work, expecting recall, was 26.5 million. Unemployment went up by 15.9, and of that, 16.2 million, there are other categories that went down, were on temporary layoff expecting recall. But there was a huge increase in the not in the labor force group, 6.6 million. In other words, I suspect that these are folks that were laid off, but not expecting recall and were not searching for work and were classified as out of the labor force. So with that kind of as background, and I hope the effort to go through that table will end up being worth it, I want to show you basically a table and then a sort of a summary chart that shows you how unemployment itself has changed. So go to the April column, April 20, and take a look at the percent distribution. That column says that in April, 78.3% of the unemployed were job losers on temporary layoff, just a huge fraction of the total. And you saw in the previous slide the big increase in temporary layoff between March and April. So If you take then a look at, say, January, just as a comparison, in January it was 12.6%. So it's skyrocketed between January, February, March. Actually, February to March went up and then skyrocketed to April. The other categories I want to focus on are permanent job losers, people who are looking for work, they've been laid off, and they know they're not going to be recalled. Fairly low, 8.7%. As well as reentrants. Reentrants are people who perhaps were laid off in the past and were not searching, but have decided to come back in and search for work. That's at 6.4%. Take a look at September. It's really changed dramatically. Temporary layoff only accounts for 37%. Permanent job losers are up to 30%, and reentrants are now up to 17%. In other words, what we're seeing is a shift in the labor market away from the people who just initially got laid off towards people who have now, many of whom, about half the jobs, 51% of the jobs have come back, are working again. And what you're getting, sort of in summary, is this rebalancing of temporary layoff, permanent job loss, and reentrance.